Hello with another Troublemakers tutorial video. So today I am going to teach you how to make a hover system and how to make an altitude hover system. Altitude one is very easy, while the hover one is also very easy, but if you don't know how to do it, you might struggle a bit. So first, take out a 4x8 block, like this. And now what we want is simply a speed sensor and a XOR block and a AND block. This is probably the most simplest way to make a hover system. Alright, now for connections. We want, for speed sensor, we want this little fan underneath it to be facing downwards, like this, with the arrow facing down. Now if you go inside, select any speed you want. My favourite speed is 0.1. This will say the speed if it drops, and that fan will start spinning, and when it will detect that speed, it will then activate everything here. So now we want to connect this speed sensor to the XOR block. Now we want to go over to AND gate, and in this green, in a positive input, we want, well, anything you want to go down. So like, my favourite is the down key. So now if I put that in there, we then set, hold on, my controller ain't being nice today. Alright, so now what we need is any block you want to hover. I am gonna use the gimbal jet. Put it on all corners, all of these sides like this. And now we connect the XOR gate to every single one of these. Now, let me explain. The XOR gate, if it detects two outputs, inputs, it then will not generate an output. It can only send in one input to every single one of these. So, if this is going in there and it's detecting something, so it'll go into there and activate all of these, I'll hover it. But when I put in my AND block and when you want it to go down, it will add another input onto the XOR block, which will then cancel the output, stopping it from hovering. So now, I am gonna, you don't need to do this part, but it just makes it so. See? Oh. So we'll add some gyro stabilizers. On just like that. See, now it hovers. Hold on, the center mass is a bit off, so I'm gonna realign it. See, here it is. It now hovers. Okay. But to make it drop so it stays at like the altitude you want, you mostly want to have it on 5. Or maybe 10. I haven't really played with this a lot. I normally just have it on 10. But you can do whatever you want. 1, I just found out, is the most best, I guess, to keep on the altitude you want. So there you go. This is the speed sensor hover system. It will keep it like this for a long time. Now I'll show you the altitude sensor hover system. So the altitude sensor, unlike the speed sensor, the speed sensor keeps on one area. So one altitude, like near to the ground, while the altitude sensor, you can actually select whatever altitude you want and it will go to that, and once it isn't there, it will start hovering without any need of a speed sensor. So let's get our altitude sensor. The altitude sensor normally comes in handy for unmanned things, so you won't be using this a lot because I'm pretty sure most of your creations are not really unmanned unless you are a fan of autonomous systems. Alright, so now, like earlier, we want to put on some gyro stabilizers, keep it steady. Like that. Make sure it's next to these to keep the center of mass in the middle. And now we go inside the altitude sensor. Set to whatever altitude you want, but right now we're on, because it's test zone, it's 301 meters up in the sky, so I need to set it to that. 301. And now you want to set it to trigger below. And now, just let it go, and it'll start doing this. It'll bounce, but after a while it'll calm down, and yeah. But if you wanted to, because if you want to set it to a very high altitude, and then that's simple, I go like that, it'll go all the way up to that altitude, and it'll just bounce there and stay there for however long I want. That is kinda how this works, one of my creations. Because it goes up to a certain altitude and it just stays there and circles a perimeter. So there you have it. That is the system of hover. There's a hover system and altitude hover system. If you want, I can show you some examples like this. But this is autonomous, but if you combine the speed sensor hover system and the altitude sensor hover system, they work together very well. Keeps on a more stable altitude instead of bouncing, see? Alright, there you have it. Hope you find this useful. It's your boy, Carter.